Welcome to the Hidden Potential Podcast. I'm your host, Homer Hargrove, and today we're going to be talking about when to stop forcing it. Whether it's a routine, a result, or even a process that you thought was going to work, sometimes you have to stop pushing. And we need to take a step back and ask ourselves, is this actually what I want to do? Is this actually working? Or am I just trying to make it work because I'm just maybe overly committed to the plan? We're going to talk about how to recognize when something is no longer fitting like it used to, how to shift gears without feeling guilty, how to be flexible, and how to, when done well, we can actually make the results stronger and become a more strategic leader. So let's first talk about the trap of forcing what used to work. So as leaders, we typically like the idea of control. We like structure. We like setting a plan and sticking to it. And that's a good thing until it's not. And what happens is when that plan no longer fits the people or maybe the moments, the mission, or maybe it doesn't even fit you anymore. And too often we fall into this trap of thinking that we're failing if we change the plan. But leadership isn't always about being perfect. It's about being effective. And that effectiveness often requires a level of flexibility. You're not necessarily called to force results. You're called to be a steward of progress. So here are three signs that might reflect that you're trying to force something that maybe you need to loosen up on. And number one is if you're feeling like you're facing constant resistance with no clear cause. Sometimes it feels like if you're hitting a wall every time that you're trying to move forward and there's no obvious fix, it could be that that system or that structure just isn't really the right fit anymore. And you have to take a breath and look at whether or not there needs to be a pivot. Maybe you shouldn't be trying to force this same way. Number two is maybe you're feeling like really low energy or low morale. When you or your team feel drained by the process, it's not the idea of not stretched, but truly depleted. Like you are feeling on the cusp of being burnt out, man, this is a sign that something is off. And we need to go back to finding effective routines that fuel us, not just function. Maybe the routine functions and everything, but it's not really fueling you as a person. And number three, attachment. Maybe you have an attachment to the plan over the purpose. See, I think that one thing we get fixated on is when our main goal becomes making this work instead of making an impact. You're probably shifted your focus into a forcing mode, and it's easy to lose sight of the why when we get too attached to the how. Like in Christian ministry, you'll hear that terminology a lot, that the message never changes, but the method does. And it's the idea of like going back to the why. And whether it's for your organization or even just your own personal mental health, your own personal physical health, this idea of maybe what once worked in your 20s isn't working in your 30s, and really just letting go of the how and going back to the why. So let's look at what flexibility actually looks like. Flexibility doesn't mean that you're being flaky, and it doesn't mean that you're being passive. It means staying committed to this mission, this general goal, while being willing to adapt the method. And so here's maybe four areas that you could check. See, flexibility with routines. Just because it worked 6 months ago, just like we talked about, it doesn't mean that it's going to work now. Routines should serve the people in the moment, not become this untouchable tradition. Number two, flexibility with timelines. Deadlines matter. So if the quality or health of your team is suffering, an adjustment timeline may actually lead to better results long term. Number three, flexibility with outcomes. You may have had a vision of what that success would look like, but don't ignore what's actually working just because it wasn't part of the original plan. Again, if the outcome is still serving and is a little flexible, still serving the the heart of what's intended, then let's be a little flexible there. And then finally, flexibility with yourself. Grace is a part of leadership. Just like we want to give grace to others, you're not exempt. You're not a machine. Being honest with yourself about what's not working, pivoting without that feeling of shame is one of the most mature things that you can actually do as a leader. Even for me, if you notice, I haven't been able to post a podcast for the last 3 weeks. I regularly, usually post every single week, but because of some changes in family emergencies and other things going on, I had to be flexible with myself and go back to like, well, this podcast is something that I like to do and enjoy, but I need to be flexible with the outcomes, with the routines, with X, Y, and Z. I need to be flexible with myself. And so again, taking a step back and not marrying the method. You're marrying the mission, but not the method. So just like I'm sharing for myself, you know, I even this year, I'm like typically a very structured person where I wake up at a certain time. I have this certain devotional. I have like this process in which I do things, and I could be very married to that routine, and it makes me feel safe. It makes me feel in control. But there's like even a period recently, like at the beginning of the year, to where I was feeling burnt out from that routine, and I had to kind of like just check myself. I'm like, man, is this actually serving me now? You know, this routine once was kind of like life-giving. It helped make me feel refreshed, but now it's making me feel burnt out. And so it's this moment in which I had to make adjustments. And at first, I felt like anxious at the idea of changing this simple idea, this morning routine schedule. It made me feel a little nervous, but at the end of the day, once I pivoted, I realized, oh man, this is so much healthier for me in this season. It was purely healthy in my previous season, but just recognizing different changes of life, different ages of my kids, you know, it's like all these little things matter to our life to where the plan changed, but this purpose still stayed and the results are still getting better. So questions to help you decide. If you're wondering whether you're forcing something right now, ask yourself these kinds of questions. Is this not working because it's hard, or because this isn't a good fit anymore? Is it just plain wrong? If I were starting from scratch today, would I still choose this system, this approach, this routine? You know, just these two questions can give you clarity about whether or not you need to either push forward or pivot wisely. So here's some closing thoughts, and that is the bottom line is leadership is not about sticking to the original plan at all costs. It's about guiding people towards purpose with wisdom, flexibility, and discernment. So if something's not clicking right now, don't assume it means that you failed or you just need to bang your head against the wall harder. It might mean that it's time to simply rework the path forward. That's not giving up, but it's more so growing up. It's growing to a new level. So with all that being said, I hope that what we talked about today was meaningful for you. I hope that was helpful within your journey. Can you do me a favor? Can you leave me a rating and review for this podcast? It really helped me out, help others be able to see this show in their feed. Until next time, have a great life. Well, there you have it. I hope that this episode was meaningful and edifying for your leadership and your growth within your ministry and organization. Could you do me a favor? Could you leave a rating and review for this podcast? It'd really help me out and help others be able to see this show in their feed. You can also visit homerhargrove.com to be able to learn more, connect, or become one of our supporters. Until next time, have a great life.